From Relay FM, this is Connected, episode number 52. Today's show is brought to you by Squarespace, Build It Beautiful, Hover, Simplified Domain Management, and Fracture. Photos printed in vivid color directly on glass. My name is Mike Hurley, and I am joined by Mr. Stephen Hackett.
Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
I'm good.
And Mr. Federico Vidici.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Federico. Welcome back.
Thank you. I missed you. I missed Stephen's sweet southern accent last week.
Whoa.
What about me?
Well, you are kind of,
You are hit or miss.
I kind of missed you. No, I'm joking. I missed you too, Mike. It's just that Stephen has the voice of an adult, whereas you're more like, when you watch like a TV show and you can tell it's not an American TV show, that's kind of what you are.
Wow.
Like, those TV shows on MTV. They come from the UK. I'm just kidding. I don't know why I said that. I love you too, Mike. It's good to be back.
Thanks.
Are you upset?
Well, I'm not upset. No, not completely.
Not completely. I wonder what it'll take for me to upset you completely. Are you even capable of being completely upset? I don't know if people in the UK can be completely upset.
Well, whether people in the UK can or can't, I am very capable of being completely upset.
No.
There are
Okay.
but few people who have managed to do it. But those people, they know about it.
And they're all dead.
So I'm back this week, but I'll miss you guys next week. But I'll be on vacation. I'll be thinking of you and sending you pictures and Instagrams of the sweet, sweet food that I will get to eat during my vacation.
I feel like I'm missing out on Italian summers here because you just got back from vacation and you're going on another vacation.
Well, the thing about Italians and the summer is that we have a culture for going to the beach from June to after the 15th of August. Really, this is really ingrained in our culture. Italians need to go to the beach as often as possible. And since I was a kid, basically our school system is structured in a way that school ends around the 10th or usually like the 12th of June and resumes basically in the first week of September. And in those 3 months, we get to do nothing. I don't know if it's the same in other countries. That's the way that it works in Italy. So in those 3 months, when you're a kid, you're on vacation for 3 months, and you're given like summer homework, that kind of stuff. You gotta read the book, but nobody really ever does that. So I never did my homework for the summer. And because my parents had the beach house, I would go there for 3 months. And in general, Italians, every single weekend of the summer, if they are close to the beach, and by close, I mean like an hour, maybe a couple of hours, they tend to go there because it's what you do in the summer. And especially in the month of August, from the first day to the 15th, which is a national holiday here, every Italian goes on vacation, really. And the recession has been especially problematic for us, of course, in the past few years. But even during the economic recession, we try to at least go on one vacation, one real vacation. So I'm lucky enough to have the beach house. But when I was younger, my parents and we would go on 2 or 3 vacations because Italy, economically speaking, we were in a really good spot. These days, most Italians, I would say, if they can afford to, they go on a single vacation, maybe just like a couple of days. But especially for the 15th of August, either you go to the beach or you go on vacation. And I guess it's a great thing of being in Italy is that unless you live in the northern part of Italy, the beach is always pretty close. So it's great being here, And the food is fantastic and the beach is awesome. So, it's always been a problem for me, actually, working from home, carrying my work around. Thanks to the iPad, I can be anywhere I want. I just cannot record the shows because I cannot use the microphone with the iPad. Please don't send us feedback about that.
I like that you're on this train now.
We should do some follow-up.
What kind of train?
The idea of you also won't record on the iPad.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's well, maybe with the iPad Pro, you know.
Could record on a new MacBook.
Mhm.
Follow up.
You won't
We've been speaking about watchOS 2. We spoke last week about my watch review and the fact that apps are slow, and that perhaps is coloring at least my impressions and maybe the impressions of others of what third-party apps could be. And we asked, the question of who is telling people that watchOS 2 will be faster. And according to Chris on Twitter, Apple Retail is telling people that watchOS 2 will be faster. I have not experienced this firsthand, but I could see that if people are complaining at the Genius Bar or to an Apple Store employee, they would say, "Hey, it's gonna be better real soon. Hang in there." It's dawn. A new dawn is coming, if you will.
This feels like a maverick Apple Store employee rather than company policy.
I had that thought as well. Generally, at least in my experience, you weren't supposed to really discuss future releases, even for a period, even if it was on Apple's website. It's like, well, it's not in the store, I can't show it to you. So I don't know. I think that, but then I think, Apple is a different company than it was 8 years ago and is more open and more conversational in nature than it used to be. So maybe this is going on. I did not get a chance to ask my retail birdies if there was anything official about this, but it does lead to some questions I have about watchOS 2. You guys are both running iOS 9 on your phones, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any sort of, like, at this point at least, any sort of alert or notification saying, hey, you can update your watch, or is it treated as a very separate thing?
The installation process for watchOS 2 on the beta is, I wouldn't say hell, but like what's between earth and hell. That's what watchOS 2 installation developer thing is. It's very annoying. Basically, there's no prompt, there's no dialogue. You just get like a refreshed Apple Watch app that's got a bunch more settings. Like there's a complications setting, there's a bunch of new options, but otherwise you wouldn't be able to tell that that it requires a different version of watchOS. To install watchOS, you need to go to the developer website, log into the device management portal. You need to enter the unique identifier of your Apple Watch, which to find, you need to download the beta version of Xcode, connect your iPhone, and you'll get the paired information of the paired Apple Watch. Then you will get the identifier, paste it into the website. Then you need to download a certificate that you need to install on your phone by mailing the certificate to yourself and tap it on the mail app. Then you will download this. No, I'm not done. Then you will install this certificate, which won't install the beta on your watch. But this file will simply tell the Apple Watch app on iOS 9 that you can download the watchOS 2 beta on your device. So you go to the Apple Watch app settings, you do the software update, you find the watchOS 2 developer seed, you download it, you wait for it to install on your Apple Watch, which takes about an hour. Then the Apple Watch reboots and you're on watchOS 2 beta. And you gotta do the certificate thing every time there's a new watchOS beta seed, and you cannot downgrade to a previous version of watchOS. So if you do something wrong, or if your Apple Watch breaks, you need to literally mail the phone to Apple, which will send you back a version running watchOS 1. Hopefully the final process will be a little smoother.
The reason I laugh like that, right, is because up until the point where you said about emailing a certificate to yourself, or emailing a link to yourself, that's very similar to how you used to have to install the iOS betas, right? But
well, it's still that way if you have the developer builds. You still have to give them your UUID, because I've got it on my iPad, not the public beta, but the developer build. So that process is the same, at least on that side of things. A little bit.
I don't know, because I didn't do that with my iPad Air, too. I just went into iTunes.
You run the public betas?
Nope, I'm running the... wait.
No. Myke is a developer, don't
beta.
you know?
I'm on the developer beta.
Yeah. At some point, you tied your ID to your, at least to your Apple ID. Maybe that's more automatic now. I put mine in manually and it worked, but yeah, hopefully that'll be better. I mean, I think when iOS 9 ships, I wonder how they will push watchOS 2. If it'll be you saw iOS 9, then you get a notification saying, "Hey, there's a watch update as well," or surely it won't be automatically done. But I kind of wonder what that process will be like for people. But
yeah.
Anyways,
I feel like they'll just get a badge on the Apple Watch app, like you get a badge on the settings app when there's a new software update.
yeah,
But I'm really liking watchOS 2 personally, so I'm kind of excited to get betas from developers, because I still haven't tried any third-party complication. I only have like 2 betas of watchOS 2 apps. They're really faster, actually. So Apple Retail, if it's true, they're right. It is faster, but I still want to try the complication stuff, the time travel feature. But yeah, I'm excited.
Cool. We spoke last week about my pair of Next stations. So there's a follow-up photo in the show notes of it sitting underneath my 27-inch display. And I got a couple emails, people asking what a Next station was, so I've also included a link to Wikipedia. It was the first hardware built by Next, the company that Steve Jobs founded after leaving Apple. And it's actually a pretty cool machine. It's black. It's none more black. The inside, I took the top off of it, and everything is as neat and orderly as you can imagine. Like as clean as Steve Jobs would want a computer on the inside. This thing is everything is in straight lines and it's very clean. It's actually very impressive for being as old as it is. So that's now here on my desk. You can see a picture of that if you visit the show notes, which could be found where, Federico?
They can be found at relay.fm. That's the website. /connected, which is the name of the show, / and then you gotta use numbers 5 and 2, which would be 52, which is the number of the episode. I recently discovered why numbers are shaped like numbers. There was a photo on Twitter showing how these are called like Arabic numbers, the ones that we use, and basically it's like, if you look at the shapes of the numbers, the number of angles in each shape is the number. So like the shape of the 5 has 5 angles, the shape of the 7 has 7 possible angles. Was super fascinating to discover, But yes, 52. That's the episode.
52. And finally, we want to draw attention to a Relay blog post. Myke, do you want to explain what we're going to be doing next week?
Yep. So next week, on the 18th, which is next Tuesday, will be Relay FM's 1-year anniversary. So to mark that, after this show broadcasts live next week, so around 1:15 p.m. Eastern Time, me and Stephen are going to be doing a live Q&A session where we're going to talk about Relay FM, what it's meant to us, and answer a bunch of questions that people are submitting. This will be available via our B-Sides feed. I'll put a link in the show notes to both of these things, so you'll be able to get to them both, so you can find out when to listen live and then also to listen on demand. But we are asking for questions about Relay and related things via the use of the hashtag RelayQA. And if you could do that, that would be awesome, so we can have some questions from you guys that we're going to address as the owners of this lovely company on our little stream that we're going to do next week. To kind of commemorate the fact that we are 1 year old. I think the first time we did this was in the first week. And then this is the second time.
Cool.
Do you know how they say that, like, a dog ear corresponds to like 7 human ears?
Yeah.
What does a relay ear correspond to?
1 human year.
That's too bad.
I'm sorry.
I kind of wanted to imagine Relay as a cute puppy, but
well, you can still do that.
No.
Does that mean it on your rug?
Your view on ears is very much pragmatic, Myke.
Life's very
I can respect that. I respect that. Like,
good, I'm pleased. Well, also, like 1 year is the same as 7 dog years, 1 relay year is the same as 7 dog years, so it's kind of similar in that regard.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to take a break here. This week's episode is brought to you by Fracture. Fracture is a company that I love who do something that I think is really cool. They are transforming the way that people print and display their favorite images. They do this by printing your photos directly onto a sheet of glass. You just go to fractureme.com and you upload a photo to them. You can choose the size that you want. They do a bunch of square sizes and rectangle sizes. And then what they will send to you in the post from their great little factory and their team that they have over in Florida, they will send to you a great print. Now, what I like about Fracture prints is that they look like something you've never seen before, which kind of sounds strange, right? Everybody knows what a picture on the wall in a frame looks like, right? Yeah, we all know what that looks like, but this is not what a Fracture print looks like. Because when you look at a picture in a frame, you see the picture, and then you see some like backing, like, you know, like the white stuff that goes around the picture, or that is set into, and then like a frame, maybe a metal frame or a wooden frame, or something like that. But with a Fracture print, there is no frame. What gets put on the wall is the picture. There's nothing that goes around it. There's nothing that is other than that picture with a piece of glass on top of it. And it really brings a different life to your photos. It draws attention to them in a different way. It really makes them pop when they're on the wall. They look fantastic. The colors look great. They do a great job of doing that to make sure that the colors are nice and bright and vivid. It's really, really good looking, and I really love them. I have a bunch of Fractures of my own. I've done some podcast artwork stuff. I've had some sent to me as gifts. I know many people that have them as pictures that they love, their family, their friends, that kind of stuff. And Fracture do a great job of making this process super simple. They're packaged really well. I've had them shipped from the US to me with no problems at all. They've all come out absolutely fantastic. I have bought them as gifts. I bought one for Stephen. I've bought Fractures for other people as well. They're a great gift idea, but they're also a great way to surface some pictures that may otherwise get lost into, you know, Instagram, or just lost in the Photos app somewhere, and puts them front and center at home. So you can get your own Fracture with prices starting at just $15, so they're not going to break the bank, and it makes them really affordable gift items as well. And you can also help support this show and get 15% off if you use the coupon code CONNECTED at checkout. Just go to fractureme.com to get started. Thank you so much to Fracture for their support of Relay FM.
Sweet. So up first today, we have a rumor about Force Touch coming to the next iPhone, which, of course, we've talked about, and everyone has been talking about a good bit since its debut on the Watch and the MacBook Pro earlier this year. But 9to5Mac has a new report out yesterday saying that it is coming to the next phone. And what's interesting about this, the report gives some use cases, so things like context-aware information in maps, or shortcuts into applications. I think the example given is if I force touch on the phone icon, I could jump straight to visual voicemail, which are my favorites. I want to see what you guys thought about this, adding another, literally another dimension, another layer of UI on top of iOS, and kind of see what y'all think this could mean.
I have many thoughts about this. I mean, on the Watch, at least based on my personal experience, it is very nice to be able to force touch and like perform shortcuts or get a different view. I just worry whether such feature would be too hidden to most people on iOS, as much as other features that are supposedly time-saving or shortcuts like extensions or like widgets, whether they can be easily discovered by people. And this is my primary concern, being it's a very nice integration, it's very nice technology, and it makes you save time, only most people don't care about it enough to remember it. Now, it could also be that I'm comparing the kind of geeky feature like extensions or like widgets to something that could be more appealing to consumers. And looking at the report from 9to5Mac, the idea of like force touching an app icon on the home screen to get to a specific view of the app kind of plays well together with the idea of deep links and getting to specific views of an app. That's a central theme of iOS 9. So it wouldn't be too surprising. I wonder if that kind of feature would be customizable by the user. So if you will let me say, okay, when I first touch the maps icon, I want to get directions to go home, or maybe I want to get directions to this other place. Or if I first touch the calendar icon, I want to see what's coming up today. Or maybe another user would say, I want to open this family calendar. So I wonder if it's going to be configurable from a user's perspective. The other concern that I have is a physical one, because the watch, you just turn your wrist and it's a really small screen, and you can just press the finger in the middle of the display, literally anywhere, and you get the Force Touch menu. But the iPhone, and especially the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 6 Plus, are two big screens. So I wonder, this kind of Force Touch functionality, what happens when you need to Force Touch on a part of the display that's really out of reach? You really need to use two hands. I mean, most people need to use two hands, but I'm just struggling to imagine, like, what happens if I Force Touch on the 6 Plus and it falls out of my hand because I press too strongly, and because the 6 Plus is too big, it just slips away. I mean, people are, having issues with the slippery edges of the iPhone 6 and the 6 Plus as it is. Imagine another dimension with a feature that, according to Mark Gurman, can make a menu appear anywhere on screen. So it's not like the Apple Watch where you Force Touch and the same menu in the same position comes up every time. Here, it's more similar to a right click on a desktop computer. Depending on when you Force Touch, you get a different output. So it'll be interesting to see on a big phone, like the physics of the feature and how users can interact with it. I'm also concerned about, is it gonna be a developer feature? Is it gonna be just for Apple apps initially? If history is of any indication, that'll be a developer API, because when Apple introduced Force Touch on OS X, they had a developer seed with the first Force Touch APIs right away. So it wouldn't be surprising to see developers being able to program their apps with Force Touch shortcuts. I'm just, it sounds great in theory. I'm just curious and maybe a little bit concerned when it comes to the flexibility from a software perspective, and the practicality when it comes to holding the iPhone and also performing the Force Touch. When I was imagining the feature, I thought it'll be nice when I'm holding the device with one hand, if Force Touch only happens across the bottom of the display, so I can use my thumb to Force Touch and it feels more natural. But in thinking about it in that way, it doesn't make sense to only have Force Touch on the lower end of the screen. So it'll be a full screen thing. I'm just curious to see how it'll work in practice.
I have some concerns about the idea of Force Touch on iOS. One of the main ones being that I think it will add a layer of complexity to UI, which isn't currently there. And may cause problems for as many things as it will be useful. So Force Touch and the idea of hiding a menu behind Force Touch was created for the Apple Watch because there isn't enough screen real estate to have all of the buttons that you may need, right? So they created Force Touch as a way to give you access to some buttons and functions. And it's already confusing enough on the Apple Watch because it's not apparent where the buttons are, right? So you just will hold down and hope that maybe what you're looking for is hidden away under the Force Touch menu. And I feel my feeling would be, and my concern is that there will now be things hidden under a menu that you don't know, right? So on the iPhone, there'll be this function that you want is hidden behind a Force Touch that you need to do on this certain area of the display. My other concern is that it will be like an excuse for to hide things away or to add in features that you may otherwise not consider. So you may find developers chuck in a bunch of stuff into their apps because they can hide it behind Force Touch, like a bunch of different features that they would otherwise not do because they would need to add a button, right? So to stop the clutter of their application, they wouldn't add it, but now they may just put it behind Force Touch, and I'm concerned that it's going to become like a junk drawer of stuff that you can hide away. And I think both of those things, they're both like complexity coming from a different angle, but that is my concern, that there's going to be functionality you can't find, and that when you do use Force Touch, there's going to be a bunch of stuff in there that otherwise would have been left out for the sake of not trying to make an app too complex.
You saw a lot of that on Android with the menu button. So it's been downplayed a lot over the years, but like back, earlier versions of Android, you had many phones that had a hardware menu button, and developers would have access to that, and they would put a lot of things behind that. So say that you were in a Twitter client or an RSS app, things like mark all as read or favorite or reply or retweet would be not visible as bits of UI, as buttons, but be behind this menu button. So you had to have, knowledge that, oh, well, I don't see this. It must be tucked, behind this single interaction. And I think to both your points, that is confusing. I mean, just a couple of days ago, really, talking to somebody who had a watch, and she was complaining that she had to remove her notifications one at a time. I was like, oh, well, just Force Touch, you can clear all. And she was like, what? I was like, she didn't even think to try it. And on the watch, I think Force Touch is pretty obvious, maybe more obvious than it will be on something like the phone, because, with the watch, you get that instant like feedback, like you're pushing through the screen and it taps you on the backside on your wrist, and it's a very one-to-one type thing. And what I told my friend was like, you should, like, when in doubt, try to Force Touch, because it's very much a hit or miss thing. Sometimes apps use it more than others, and not even all of Apple's apps support it really in the same way. And I really worry that on the phone, that's going to be a lot worse and be potentially more confusing. And, people are going to be like, well, this Twitter app is bogus, I can't retweet. Well, that's because it's behind a Force Touch, And so I think that's problematic. And I think it was problematic on Android for a long time. I think what is more, I don't know if it's more problematic or makes it potentially better, is that if you are a developer and you rely on something being behind a Force Touch that is not visible otherwise, well, that is only going to be available to you on the newest phones. So we might have this period of time where Force Touch really isn't used very heavily, or it's used for extremely secondary type things. And then, maybe in 5 years when, you could say, well, basically all the iPhones out there support this. Maybe this isn't an immediate problem. Maybe it's a problem down the road, which I think is sort of an interesting way to look at it. It being tied to hardware means that you can't rely on all of your users having it, at least at this point.
I wonder if the problem of developers kind of using Force Touch as an excuse to hide menus and options that would usually be accessed through buttons in the interface would be fixable by having accessibility settings. Because the entire Force Touch idea has, I think, huge accessibility, implications. And I wonder if for some users, it'll be preferable not to have Force Touch. Users with motor impairments and other reasons why they cannot apply pressure on a screen. I wonder if saying with an accessibility setting screen, saying never enable Force Touch shortcuts for me would basically offer developers an API to say, okay, you can either use Force Touch or you can use a regular button that you see in the UI. You can tap normally. Also, it seems like a lot of people are saying that and even we are saying that Force Touch is going to be another dimension of software on the iPhone and presumably the iPad. And I remember when Siri was announced for the iPhone 4S, all of us, we said, well, of course, voice control is the next layer, the next dimension of iOS. And Siri came out 4 years ago, and it's it's a very nice addition to the iPhone and the iPad. And it's one of the primary ways that we interact with the Apple Watch, but it still hasn't become a possible replacement for touch. It's an option, but I wouldn't say it's a complete new dimension. Now, I wonder, we're gonna say that when Force Touch comes to the iPhone and the iPad, we're gonna say again, this is a new layer, this is a new dimension, and I wonder if this will be more true for Force Touch than it has been for Siri. Because the job that Siri needs to accomplish is very complex. Natural language, third-party app integration, that's network conditions. That's really a complex problem. Force Touch, it's just physical input, right? And I wonder if 4 to 5 years from now, we will see the introduction of Force Touch as truly the next dimension of the devices that we use. Imagine an iPhone that doesn't have a home button and that just uses Force Touch for physical input and pressure on the screen. And I wonder if the implications long-term for Force Touch will be more easily appreciated than, Siri and voice input.
I think there are a bunch of differences, though, like backwards and forwards for this. Like, that Force Touch and Siri are different because Siri is it's like another part of the phone. It didn't add to the existing apps or experiences that we use in the same kind of way as it does on the watch, right? Because on the watch, it just flat out replaces the main input method. So there's kind of nothing you can do other than use it. But like Siri, it was like an Apple feature and still is an Apple feature. Like, developers can't really do anything with it. It's not really an interaction method on the phone that is in the same kind of way as Force Touch. But Force Touch is like it's something that will most likely be for developers. It is additions to existing apps rather than like a separate thing. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think it will be different in that kind of regard. And I don't know if like Force Touch is going to be groundbreaking, really. Like, I'm kind of a little bit like, I guess they're kind of just doing it because then it will be on all the product lines. It's like a marketing thing, like how they created Retina displays for everything, even though it's all very different device to device.
I think it'll be pretty important on the iPad.
But for a different reason, though. That's what I'm saying.
For a different reason, yeah, for sure. And I'm thinking about iOS 9, and on the iPad, there's a rumor of an Apple Pen coming to the iPad. So a stylus that uses pressure. So that's one thing for sure. I mean, pressure sensitivity with a stylus, that's pretty important. And Force Touch could enable that. But also when you consider some iOS 9 features coming to the iPad, like there's a split view multitasking, and you cannot do drag and drop between two apps in split view. And I wonder if Force Touch could be really a new dimension in that regard, that it lets you operate, different, lets you literally grab data with your hand and push it to another part of the screen, giving you feedback in the process. So on the iPad, I guess it could have, so this is just a theory, it could have some pretty big implications. Short term on the iPhone, I don't know, because it seems like a nice shortcut, but will it be groundbreaking from the get-go on the iPhone? I don't know.
Also, like, going back to mentioning about the iPad again, I think this is where, like, the marketing stuff kind of gets a bit confusing, because what they'll be kind of calling a bunch of different types of technologies Force Touch, and that's where things get a bit weird, right? So Force Touch on the laptops is different to Force Touch on the watch, right? Yeah. They're actually kind of different technology. They do different things, because like, on the laptops, it judges pressure and then gives you the tap back, as opposed to whatever it's doing on the watch, where it's kind of doing some different stuff, but it's just like that one dimensional. You press this, you get a button, and then whatever it will be on the phones is one thing. But then Force Touch on a new big iPad that has a pen will be what they're calling it, but it's going to be underlying in different technology. Because let's say, for example, they call Force Touch on the 12-inch iPad, they call it Force Touch, and Force Touch allows you to use a pen. You won't be able to take that pen and use it on other devices. It's like it won't be Force Touch as a thing that will allow you to do that, because from my understanding of this sort of stuff is it will require a different digitizer to allow for the sensitivity of the pen, but also for there to be the ability for the pen to be read, like for there to be more pixels for it to be read on, or however that works. I'm talking very general because I don't fully understand it. But if they call that Force Touch, it's not going to be the same kind of Force Touch if what they're doing is changing the digitizer so there's more like pixel pressure and there's more pixels to be able to be read by the digitizer. If like that's enhanced, I'm running circles around myself a little bit just as a way to try and explain that. Like, I think that they will be different because the pen won't work everywhere. The pen will work on that iPad that they've increased the sensitivity in, but it won't be the same Force Touch as there may be on the iPad Air if that doesn't have a pen, or that will be on the iPhone, or that will be on the MacBook, or that will be on the watch. They'll be branding it up differently, like how the Retina display, they call many different devices Retina.
Exactly.
Even though it's all completely different pixel.
I was exactly about to say that.
So like it's like it, but the thing with the Retina display is you just know Retina display means good display, right?
Yeah.
But Force Touch will be the same thing, but it will actually be doing different things in different places.
Yeah, it'll mean pressure, it'll mean feedback, that kind of stuff. I guess they're going for. I don't know.
It's messy, but like you guys say with the Retina display, and there's other examples as well where Apple reuses names and the idea of it being, hey, the general idea of you apply pressure to the interface, whether the interface be a trackpad or a piece of glass or a watch, and you get more UI. I mean, I think in broad terms, I think it works. It is interesting, the pen stuff. I'm not sold on them if they do a truly pressure sensitive with lots of pressure layers. I don't know if they would call that Force Touch or not, but I do think that the iPad Pro stuff, which is it's sort of tacked on into the end of this article. I actually missed it because I just skimmed this the first time I read it.
Mm-hmm.
And then people were like, "Oh, they mentions the big iPad and the pen." Actually, two big iPads. I kind of like how it was folded in there. So it seems like we are on track to see, maybe Force Touch and pen input, whatever that would look like, this fall from the iPad line. So overall, I think what's most interesting to me, beyond the details of this, is that iOS is becoming more complex. It is becoming more potentially much more powerful in certain ways, especially with the pen stuff. That's going to open up a whole new world of possibilities for a certain type of user. So that's all really exciting because iOS is, more or less the same sort of user interface and same sort of user interaction that's always been. They've added stuff to the to the button, right? So you have like reachability and you have Siri and that sort of stuff, but they're kind of out of things to do with that home button, and so they, moving Force Touch to the phone and the iPad seems like a logical extension of what they've already done.
I did just want to make one last point, and I've given this time, we're months in now, but I just don't like jamming my finger into a display. I find Force Touch uncomfortable on the watch. I don't think it feels very nice to use, and I don't like the idea of using it everywhere, just because of the way it feels. It may bring utility. I don't know if I'm alone in this, but I think it's a very uncomfortable gesture, like to just jam my finger into a display that doesn't move. Like, it doesn't feel like anything's moving to me. Like,
it would be better if the interface moved really, like if it would be more organic. You know what I'm saying? Like you press and you see like little ripples around the UI, that kind of stuff. It feels very static at the moment. Like you just jam your finger, there's a menu.
I don't mean like feels as in like from a UI perspective. I just physically don't like the way it feels on my finger to do
okay.
it.
No, I think I'm good from that point of view.
Yeah, I just don't like it. It's just kind of uncomfortable. Like you just, because as well, like there isn't, because it's not a button there, and it's like sensitivity and pressure. There isn't like you must press this much, right? Like sometimes I feel like I'm doing what I need to do, but it's not working. But it's because I haven't pushed the amount that you need to push. But I think I have, but I haven't.
So it's really like a random pressure lottery.
Yeah, which is how it feels. I mean, obviously that's not the case. Like I'm sure it's hard coded in a lot of math to make that happen. But to my brain, it's like you must push, but you don't know how much you need to push, which is why like I can't get, and I've never been able to get the on the Force Touch trackpads. Whenever I've tried one out, I've never been able to get that to work for me properly. Like this multi-level of pressure that people talk about being able to do, I've never been able to get it to work. Like I can't seem to control it. Like the idea of like you can slow it down and speed it up, I've never been able to do that.
A way to test it is you gotta be really careful, but you can force touch on the watch face, and if you change your pressure constantly, it's very subtle. But if you try to, you can see the watch face kind of receding in the background and then coming forwards as you change the pressure level.
Yeah, I just tried that.
You can control that actually,
but like I'm struggling to do that multiple times.
Yeah,
in a row.
it is difficult. Yeah.
But yeah, I can see that. You can kind of make it go in and come away.
Exactly. Like you gotta press just slightly harder than you would normally press the screen. And then if you really jam your finger, you get the haptic feedback and the modular or whatever watch face you see, the setting screen for the watch face.
In a few years' time, nobody's going to be able to feel things as we've all crushed the nerve endings in our fingertips.
We're gonna rewrite the DNA of our species for Force Touch.
Oh man, it'll be interesting, and I think that what is most likely to happen in my mind is that Apple will do it in their apps, and maybe some like iOS 9 only apps may do it. But again, until this is more widely available in the iPhone user base, that it's going to be limited at first, just based on the number of things that are out there and what makes sense. I think the other thing to remember here is, Apple has done a lot of new things in iOS and OS 10 over the years that, developers try, and then, it works for some apps and works for some developers, but doesn't work for others. So, things aren't as widely spread as they may seem. I think extensions are a good example of this, where extensions make a lot of sense for certain types of apps. And I think that a lot of other apps that they don't make sense, you just don't see them, for those. And so I kind of have faith that at least good third-party developers will know what to do, and it will sort of level out into a thing that makes sense. But there's always going to be those edge cases that it's like, what are you doing with this? Why is your retweet button behind a Force Touch? But I keep using Twitter apps as if they're going to continue to exist, but that's fine. It's a different topic.
This week's episode is also brought to you by Hover. Hover is the best way to buy and manage domain names. It's my favorite way. It's the favorite way of many, and it's simply because Hover make it easy. They make it easy for you to go in and choose a domain that you want. They have a really great search system where you can just go on to hover.com. You can type the domain you're looking for or some keywords, and they'll make some great suggestions. They display all of the TLDs that are available. They show you the ones that are taken if you just need to know that. You can get all of the domain options that you are used to using. You can get .com, .co, .me, .net, .us, .co.uk. They also have a bunch of the TLDs that you will have heard of, like .limo, .diamond, .academy, .fish, if that's kind of the types of... Maybe I think they do a .ceo as well. If you need any of those for serious or jokey reasons, maybe you need .xyz like Google does now. You can get all of those TLDs from hover.com. But also one of the other things that I love about Hover is their domain tools are really easy to use. I find this stuff to be confusing at the best of times, but they do a good job of laying it all out in a nice, easy to understand interface, and they have a bunch of great guides and documentation on how to use this stuff. But as well as that stuff, you can also, as I needed to recently, when I entered some information wrong into the domain system and couldn't work out what I'd done, I I contacted Hover's great support. I sent them an email and they got back to me really quickly and they told me what I needed to do. It was really awesome of them. They just said, oh no, you just need to do this, this, and this, and it will work nicely for you. And they were very helpful and they were very speedy at that, which was very useful. Hover also have a no hold, no wait, no transfer telephone support policy, so you can give them a call and they can help you as well. And you'll be able to get answers out of the person that you speak to. They're not going to pass you around from department to department. Hover, their prices are really great. Their .com domains start at $12.99. They include Whois Privacy for free with all of the domains that support it. Because Hover believe that your private information should stay private. They don't make you pay for it, that kind of thing, which kind of seems a bit crazy that somebody would make you pay for the fact to keep your private information private when you're giving them money anyway. But that's something that other companies do make you do. But Hover, they give you Whois Privacy for free. Hover also have their valet service. They'll take all of the hassle out of switching from your current provider because they'll do it all for you, no matter how many domains that you have. They also do volume discounts for bulk domain renewal, custom email addresses, storage and forwarding, and so much more. So go to hover.com and you can try them out for yourself. You'll want to use the code SUMMERTIME, one word, at checkout, and you'll get 10% off your first purchase at hover.com and show your support for this show. Thank you so much to Hover for sponsoring this week's episode. Right, so let's talk. We're going to ask Federico some questions about his iOS 9 review in a moment, but I wanted to just talk a little bit about the difference of the beta on the iPad and the iPhone so far, as I've just installed it on my iPhone. And then we can talk a little bit about Federico's current experiences with writing his iOS 9 review. Is that fair, guys?
Yes.
So, one of the first things I want to mention is I've had the beta on my phone for about a week, and I'm not going to say it. My phone is starting to run really hot, and I'm worried about it. I'm really scared.
You didn't do the clean install thing?
Did not.
Okay.
Did not do a clean install. And I can't fully pin down what scenarios this is happening in, but sometimes my phone just runs really hot, like too hot to touch kind of hot.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, which is...
That's fine.
Yep,
it's fine.
It's interesting. I think it might be audio related because I think my battery life has been fine, but I also think that when I'm listening to podcasts and stuff like that, or listening to music, the battery runs down quickly, and it would make sense if those two things are related, that it's running hot and the battery's draining, right? So maybe it's an audio thing right now in beta 9. Beta 9,
are you
5.
streaming music or audio to a Bluetooth speaker or headphones?
Nope.
So through the speaker of the iPhone?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, my 6 Plus will get warm doing audio. I'm running iOS 8.4, but definitely not too hot to touch. Not so hot that I could cook breakfast on the back of it.
I'm not cooking on it, but it's like I can feel the heat with my case on, and then I take the case off, and it hurts to touch it.
That's not.
Wow.
That's fine.
That's
So I'm a little bit scared.
You don't listen to music as you fall asleep. Your house might burn down.
That's a good idea. I won't do that.
So I get what you're asking, though, about... I'm not running it on my phone yet, as I said, but in looking at iOS 9, I spent a lot of time with it on my iPad Air 2, which I really, really like what they're doing there. iOS 9 feels very, very much like an iPad release, and so does it feel all that new and all that fancy on the iPhone?
So for me, I mean, I think that Federico is more likely to feel different because for his review, he's, I assume, pushing iOS 9 to its limits on both devices, where I'm just kind of using it like I would have used my phone before, right? And for me, the beta, basically iOS 9 feels smaller on the iPhone than it does on the iPad. Like, many of the enhancements feel like small jumps, like Maps adds transit, which is great, but it's massive. Like, it's not like they've redefined the game. They've added transit. I've actually found, whilst there are some good things about Google's transit stuff, and Apple's transit stuff, they miss things from each other. So, like Google Maps doesn't have the great exit and entrance marking that the Apple Maps transit stuff does. So, like marking where entrances to train stations are is really, really useful, because sometimes it will just on Google Maps it just plonks the pin down in the middle of the station, where when they're underground that is completely unhelpful because it doesn't show me where I need to go in, and it can make a difference, if anything, just for annoyance. But what I've found is that Google Maps has a greater understanding and support for the accurate, up-to-date train information, where Apple Maps, basically there was a disturbance on a train line that I was using this weekend where it was facing severe delays. It actually wasn't running at a certain point, and Google Maps saw that, and Apple Maps didn't see that, and it reported on it later in the day when I checked again. But that information I need to know immediately. If I'm looking and it's happening now, I need to know that that's the case, because that is a difference in the route that I'm going to take. And if I would have got to the train station and having looked at Apple Maps and not known that was going to happen, that is annoying to me. Where Google Maps shows that stuff immediately, which is, extremely useful. I also find that Apple Maps still has some other ways to go in a bit more like up to the minute, when is the next train leaving type of stuff, which is really useful for Google Maps. So I'm still trying them both out. I'm using them in parallel to see what it's like there. The revised search page is fine. I am finding myself using the recently used app stuff sometimes when I pull down to do a spotlight search. A lot of the times the app that I want is in there, which, again, that's one of the other big features. I haven't seen use out of any of the assistant stuff after a week. Maybe it still needs more time, but none of that has... I'm not seeing any travel reminder, travel alerts that are useful.
You're not going to get travel reminders there. I'm sorry, Mike.
I thought that it comes up in Siri to tell you your next thing, or where am I supposed to see that then? Where am I going to get those alerts?
You do get the calendar alerts for the time to leave notifications.
I haven't had any time to leave notifications yet.
Basically the problem there is that if you create an event with a location, with an address, you gotta manually set the alert as a time to leave alert in the calendar app.
Yeah, that's not very helpful, assistant.
Yeah, and even if you do, I've been trying all my location-based events with the time to leave notifications. They are super early for me. Like, I can be there in 10 minutes, I get a notification 40 minutes before, which is not really useful. According to Apple, it's looking at traffic information, it's looking at your location. So either it gets my location wrong, or it gets traffic in Rome completely wrong, but they have been firing off super early for me, which is not exactly helpful. But otherwise, if you get I use Gmail, and I've been using Google now as a comparison. When I have hotel receipts in my email, Google is able to parse on its own what I'm gonna do. So it knows I'm gonna be in the Amalfi Coast, and it's showing me the weather, it's showing me the hotel reservation, it's showing me the hotel location and other information about the opening hours. It knows just by looking at an email. Whereas the search page of iOS 9 configured with the same email account in the Apple Mail app, it knows nothing. So either it doesn't want to know, or it's not capable of knowing. I don't know. But I open Google now, I see that kind of stuff. Just based on my email, I open the iOS 9 intelligence page, I see nothing about that. Potentially that's a problem. But maybe, I don't know, maybe people don't care. I care. It is nice in Google. It's very nice in Google, but it doesn't seem as clever as Google.
So some of the other stuff, like San Francisco, is the biggest change for me. The font makes everything look new, and I love it, and I want all my apps to have it. I am embracing the keyboard. I'm not making any of the changes. I don't have the popover on anymore. I'm embracing all of that, and I like it.
Yes. So real quickly, for people who haven't used it, what is new about the keyboard in iOS 9?
So one of the big things is that it doesn't when you tap a character, it doesn't pop up with the preview of the character anymore in that like magnification way to show you what you've hit. I just trust that the iPhone knows what I'm hitting, and it does. Yeah. There's also shift key stuff which confuses me, like the changes, because there have been some more changes that I still don't fully understand. But my favorite thing is it's the keycaps. So yes. I now know when shift is enabled because it's lowercase or uppercase characters, and I like that. I think the lowercase character keyboard looks nice. I know many people hate it with a passion. Yeah,
yeah.
But I like it. I like it a lot.
I don't know, it feels like one of those like designer dogmas, whereas people hate on this feature on principle because the iOS keyboard and the Mac keyboard has always been uppercase. Therefore, it should remain uppercase for eternity. I don't agree. It's very practical. You hit the shift key and it's lowercase, or maybe it's uppercase. You just see what's going on, you know? And it feels more natural. I mean, it's a software keyboard, and one of the advantages is to be able to change the keyboard via software. But a lot of people are super upset about this.
Yep. I think the biggest thing for me here, though, is that there are enhancements, but there's nothing groundbreaking like there was for iOS 8, like extensions. Like, it doesn't feel to me here like there's anything big. I'm hearing Federico saying the big stuff is the iPad. That's where the groundbreaking stuff is.
Yeah. Yeah.
The split views, the picture-in-picture. Like, this is where the really big leaps are. And I'm kind of okay with the fact that it's an iPad release. Like, I'm fine with it, but it's just not the pace that we've seen year over year. Yeah. And this may be an enhancement year, and this may be the first time that we get a TikTok, and this is how it's going to be now. Also fine with, but just basing it upon the history that we've had, it's different. And if in 5 years' time we look back at this as being the first year where they did, just enhancements and then big changes, I'm fine with it. But I'm just saying, comparing it to the last 7 releases, it's very different.
In a lot of ways, and especially on the iPhone. I agree with you, by the way. It feels like this year we get the calm before the storm that I assume iOS 10 is going to be. Because the features that we're getting on the iPhone, like the improved Notes app, the new font, the low power mode, the improved statistics for battery consumption, the general polish across apps and new settings. It feels like they're sort of wrapping up work that began last year with iOS 8 before whatever's coming up next with iOS 10, which I assume is going to be a pretty big change. And on the iPad, you could see the more groundbreaking stuff with the multitasking. On the iPhone, it's a bunch of nice features. They're not exactly revolutionary. They're potentially gonna be massive changes if the intelligent stuff pans out like Apple wants to, or all these other features for improved performance with apps being capable of consuming energy in a different way, and the developer features of being able to release apps on the App Store just to specific devices with bitcode and that other kind of stuff. On the iPhone, it feels like a collection of nice changes and much necessary fixes and improvements. And on the iPad, it's more, okay, we really need to rethink this device. And I agree with that. But I wonder, like, people like us, we were in love with, like San Francisco and these typographic changes. I wonder if most people will ever actually notice the different font.
I don't know.
There's so many details in San Francisco, and I try to cover them in what I'm writing. But I fear, maybe not fear, I just worry that maybe, those changes won't be as appreciated by most people as we appreciate them, which is fine because, typography, it's a very niche market, I guess. And what matters, I think, for San Francisco is that it contributes to the bottom line of readability and, better layouts for developers and apps and more readable text. If if it accomplishes that goal, that even if people don't notice, even if they subconsciously notice the improvements, I guess that's okay.
So we should probably, Steve, unless you have anything else, we should probably move into talking about the review in a little bit more depth.
Works for me.
Okay, let me just take a break first, and then we've got a clear runway to talk about Federico's current status on his iOS 9 review. This week's episode is also brought to you by Squarespace. You can start building your website today at squarespace.com, and you want to use the code WORLD at checkout, and you'll get yourself 10% off. Squarespace, build it beautiful. When it comes to giving yourself a home on the internet, Squarespace is the place, because they put all the power that you need right into the palm of your hands, onto your fingertips as well, even as you're typing on your keyboard, and take away the pain points that you don't want to have to worry about. Things like hosting, scaling, what to do if you get stuck with something, or even having to know or put into skill coding. Like if you don't know how to build a website from scratch, or you don't, this isn't something you want to learn when you just want to put that blog that you've been looking for into action, or you want somewhere to host the store that you've been building to sell your artwork or for your portfolio, or whatever reason you may want a Squarespace site for, maybe for an upcoming event or wedding, so you want to set up a lovely website, use their cover pages to do that. You can use all that stuff. Or maybe you do know, but you just don't want the aggravation of building something and then maintaining it yourself, which is perfectly fine. And I think really, especially if this is sort of stuff that you do for a living, like having to do it again when you get home as well, I don't know, it seems kind of crazy to me. I don't know if some people may want to do that stuff, but you don't have to worry about it. Like Squarespace does enable you to get in and tinker around with stuff if you want to make tweaks to make things just the way that you want, but it's the idea that you don't have to build everything. You don't have to build a CMS, you don't have to build blog templates, you don't have to build all of the crazy, you don't have to build DNS, you don't have to do any of this stuff. You just don't have to worry about any of it. You can just use Squarespace's great tools. They're powerful tools as well. They power millions of websites around the web, from individuals to big companies. Squarespace makes sure that your site will remain secure and powerful and well-hosted and everything and up-to-date. They just take care of all of it, and this is stuff that you don't have to worry about if you're a Squarespace user. They also have 24/7 live chat and email support, so if you need any help, they have teams located all around the world to help you. All of Squarespace's fantastic templates feature responsive design, so make sure that your site looks great on all manner of devices. They have tons of great templates. They have some that are tailored to be used by specific type of industries or for specific uses, but you can use any of them because they're all customizable. You can enable and disable the functionality that you need and don't need. They have the commerce platform, which we use at Relay FM to sell t-shirts and stickers in our own store. It's the same as our blog is a Squarespace blog, because these are things that we want but don't want to have to build and maintain. This is what Squarespace is so fantastic at, because they build this stuff better than we're ever going to, so we use Squarespace for it. If you want to stretch Squarespace further, as I mentioned, their dev platform is available to you. So I just want to underline this. I talk about how easy it is, but if you want to tinker around with stuff and just take use of some of the great features that they have, but want to build some stuff for yourself or push it into different directions, you can do all of that. And it's now available to you to take further than ever before. If you sign up for a year of Squarespace, you'll get yourself a free domain name as well. So it's, you can you get the whole package here, if that's the kind of thing that you're after. Squarespace plans start at just $8 a month, and you can sign up right now with a free trial. There's no credit card required to do this, and you can start building your website straight away by going to squarespace.com. And when you decide to sign up, make sure that you use the offer code WORLD at checkout. You'll be supporting this show and getting yourself 10% off your first purchase. Thank you so much to Squarespace for their support of this show and Relay FM. Squarespace, build it beautiful. Right, so Federico, how is the review going? How far into it are you at this point?
I think I'm approaching 50% of the sections that I want to cover. I'm leaving on Thursday morning, and I set a goal for myself to leave with the iPad section, which is probably the biggest of the review, being done by Wednesday night. I'm not sure if I'll manage to finish by tomorrow night, because there's still quite a few things that I want to cover. and I split the final part of the iPad section in 3 mini sections, which I think will wrap up the discussion on iPad nicely. But I'm not sure, because I'm finishing the actual features, like the actual talking about the actual changes on the iPad today, with the keyboard talk for software and hardware. And then it's this final section split up in 3 subsections. I'm not sure if I'll manage to finish tonight and tomorrow. But I try to cover beforehand the big stuff. So I've already done design, I've already done notes, and I'm gonna be done soon with iPad. And the reason I did this is I want to come back from vacation. I'm pretty sure I won't write anything on vacation, because I need a time off. But maybe if I can be inspired enough, couple of hours each night before bed, maybe I can get to write a few sentences here and there. But otherwise, I want to come back from vacation and have like a solid 10 days to wrap up all the rest. And I left the smaller changes, the smaller features and of course the conclusion for, the end of August and the first week of September. I want to be done with the text and the images and everything by September 9, which is when Apple is rumored to have an event. I don't think iOS 9 will be released on the day of the event, but you never know, so I want to be ready. And I saved like I said, the other things like Safari changes and like reminders, podcasts, iCloud Drive, all these other minor features or additions or changes to the OS for after the vacation. So I want to leave and have the most important things done. And I struggled to get started on the iPad section because I really wanted to find an angle that I could work on to kind of develop the entire story of the iPad. And once I was done with that last week, I kind of just followed everything from there. I'm still using my mind map to organize all the outline of the review and every time I go through a topic and it's done, I close the branch of the mind map, so I know that I'm done with it. I'm still making a note of every problem that I mentioned that it's still not fixed in beta 5. I created a checklist of problems and issues that I need to double check before publishing the review in September. I don't know if that'll be a beta 6 or if it goes straight up to GM, but I have a list of problems that I need to basically check again if there's still problems or not. And as I write, I always forget things, like little details of stuff that I need to mention in the review. For example, I forgot to have a paragraph about FaceTime support in picture-in-picture on the iPad because I only covered video. And today I was getting started to write about the hardware keyboard on the iPad, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about FaceTime in the picture-in-picture because it's also an option. So I went in a tutorial, I went to the picture-in-picture section and I just wrote a sentence about FaceTime. I didn't write the actual paragraph, so I know when I'm when I will be done with the review, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write all these small paragraphs and sections that I missed before the first proofreading session. And the reason why I don't wanna go back to each section now is I wanna be done with the main text first. Then I can do the smaller things that I forgot, and then I can start reading and adding links and footnotes. The problem so this is the current state. I'm almost done with the iPad section, and I'm trying to save the conclusion, of course, as the final thing that I write. Although I still have an idea of kind of the style that I want to use for the conclusion. And then I'm trying to save all these other app updates and changes. And of course, the performance section for the final beta, or, if you don't get a beta, for really the last available moment, so I can evaluate performance and over time better. The problem is, I don't wanna spoil the word count, but it's starting to. Myke knows how much it is right now, but it's starting to be quite a lot, and I'm already approaching the point where it is longer than the longest article that I ever published on MacStories. And I'm wondering if for the first time in 6 years of MacStories, I should split up the review in multiple pages. And the reason that I'm thinking about this is not for the page views. I don't necessarily care about the possible increase in page views. The problem that I came across with editorial 2 years ago was the review was so long, with so many images, so many videos, that it caused issues for a lot of people who couldn't open the review in their browsers because the browsers were crashing, because the web page was too heavy. And in thinking about this problem nowadays, our website is much lighter and it's responsive and it's a better reading experience, and browsers and mobile devices are more powerful today than 2 years ago. But there's a problem. It's going to be way longer than the editorial review, and it's going to have more images, it's going to have animated GIFs, it's going to have videos, there's going to be a lot of resources on the web page itself. And I'm thinking, if this is only on a single page, what happens if somebody tries to read this review on a mobile network, on 3G or 4G? Do I really want that person to consume all that data on a single page? And most importantly, is that single web page gonna offer reasonable performance when scrolling around, when jumping from section to section, when opening footnotes and going back to the body text? My primary concern is that such a long piece of text and multimedia is gonna be problematic on a single page. And if my reader is not able to have a good experience in reading a single page, then a single page shouldn't be the default presentation of the review, which is why I'm thinking of going the Syracuse way and splitting the review in relevant pages, not necessarily by word count, but by section. So where it makes sense to split up the review in pages, offer an option to read in a single page, because of course that's the right thing to do, but otherwise just split up the review so it's easier to read, it's easier to follow, it doesn't consume as much mobile data or Wi-Fi, whatever it is that you gotta keep an eye on, as it normally would on a single page, and be extremely upfront about the reason why it's available on multiple pages rather than a single page by default. So I want to make the default the multiple pages, and I want to make the single page an option.
In my opinion, this isn't even a question. That's just what you should do. Like, the benefits are so clear. Like, I don't know why you would go backwards and forwards on it. Like, it just makes sense. It just makes sense, because editorial was it crashed Chrome on my phone. Like, that review,
it was crazy.
Like, it was just really tough. And considering that, I mean, you said you didn't want to get the word count away. You said that you're halfway through and this is already approaching the size of the biggest article ever published to your site, so people can infer what that might look like. And I know that you're halfway through the topics, not necessarily halfway through the words, right?
Yes.
So it could be less,
exactly.
it could be more even. I think that it just makes sense. Give people the button to click it and crash their web browser if they want to. But I think that this has to be split into sections. Because plus, as a reader, for me anyway, I find it nicer because I'm able to accomplish this in stages. Like,
it gives you a sense of place, really.
Yes, because at a certain point, I can't judge how much more I have to go because my scroll bar it becomes, you can't make it any smaller.
Yeah.
right? So like the little button, the little tic-tac in the scroll bar, whatever that's supposed to be called, that's just going to stop getting small. So it's just going to become impossible for me to understand kind of how much I have left to go here. I always appreciate, as somebody that doesn't like to read extremely long things, just in general, I always really appreciated that with John's reviews, that they were broken up into sections like that. Because plus, I could jump bits that I didn't want to read really easily. Like just stuff that just wasn't relevant to me.
It also makes it easier to link back to something in the future. So like I've written about OS 10 and I refer to something that John wrote in one section, and I can link a user directly to a page that's the most relevant to what I'm trying to get across. And so there's a lot of benefits. I think you should definitely paginate it. I do know you guys a couple of years ago, when you guys were doing an OS 10 review, had a PDF for sale. Do you see anything like that going on with your iOS 9 review?
That
was a heavy sigh.
There's something again that Myke knows that I'm doing this year, and that is definitely an idea.
What does Myke get to know all your secrets and not me?
Because because I feel like when I'm telling you stuff, it needs to be finalized. Otherwise, you're the adult and you will be upset if it doesn't pan out as it's supposed to work. Whereas Myke is more of a youngster and he's open to crazy ideas and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas I fear your judgment in a way.
Wow.
In a good way, Stephen. Like I tell you when no, I'm just kidding. I just happened to tell Myke. And I'm pretty sure I actually told you. But anyway, there's like, it's an idea. Let me just say that it's an idea, a PDF and an EPUB version. I don't know how much if I finish the review, like the entire proofreading and the screenshots and the GIFs and the videos, if I'm done 2 days ahead of the public release, will I have time to handle the PDF and EPUB conversion? I don't know. Can it come later as an option for some readers? Maybe. So that's something we're considering. Yeah. What I'm struggling with that I kind of want to talk to you guys about, as I told you, I'm like setting goals for myself. Like today I want to write this section and then I want to be done with this other section by Wednesday, that kind of progress. And I'm really struggling not to feel bad about missing those deadlines that I made up for myself. Because maybe I'm writing a section and I realize that I want to say less or I want to say more. And then the goal that I originally set in my mind completely goes away because because maybe I'm late or maybe I'm done super early with this section. And like, especially considering, going on vacation and the fact that in the summer, I'm not supposed to work as much as I work in the fall and the winter. I kind of, on multiple occasions, I feel bad. I don't know if it makes sense. And yeah. I wanted to ask if you guys have a system to kind of organize goals, but also to be flexible with those goals and to kind of reset them as you're completing the task or working on the task.
I expect Stephen will have a more logical
exactly.
answer than me, because my answer and feeling about this stuff is I think you have to feel bad. That's just, to me, it is like no other way to do it, because if that doesn't make you feel bad, then you won't feel bad if you just don't do the work, right? Like if you're feeling bad even when you've done more work, right, but you've just done different work, that is frustrating, but I think that it is a necessary outcome of feeling bad at all. Like it's just something that you have to accept, that you're going to feel bad if you didn't meet your established goal for the day, but yet you have done work that is still useful. I mean, I have the kind of scenario, I'm able to feel a little bit better when I know at least I've been useful in some way. Like I've done something which has been of use, but I still feel bad if I haven't marked all the things off in a day that I wanted to get done in a day. But I think that really, like, just feel bad about it, but understand that the reason you feel bad about it is because you care. Because if you stop feeling bad about it, then maybe you won't be able to get it done at all. Like, it's just a necessary thing about caring. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, thank you, Myke.
No, I think it's a really fair way of looking at it, Myke, and I definitely resonate with a lot of that. The only thing I would add, and not so much for my time as like an independent person, because it's only been a week, but my previous life being a project manager, you on any sort of big project you have sort of known quantities of things, so you know how many hours a day that you can reasonably work. You know that Apple's going to have an event September 9th, so you have a rough idea of when that deadline is. And then you have all the things that are wild cards of, you have these technical questions to answer. You have, hey, there could really be a drastic change at some point in this. It could be that, I wrote this thing and then, like you said, I forgot this section or I didn't outline properly, so I got to go back and rework something. So for me, it's just trying to get out ahead of all those contingencies, and having an understanding of what you can control and, things that are sort of like almost in your control, what you can do to rein those in. And it sounds like you're doing that. Like you have a goal of, hey, I plan on having the iPad section done before I leave. Well, if you don't have it done, it's probably not the end of the world, right? You still have time. That you already said that's the biggest section. And so I think it's just a matter of finding what you can do in a reasonable way to try to limit surprises. And whatever that looks like in writing an iOS 9 review is obviously different than doing other types of work. But I think the concept is the same of what can I really handle and make sure it goes my way, and how do I prepare for the things that I can't. I think that's a pretty it's worked well for me in the past at a normal job, and I think it will hopefully continue to serve me well now, and hopefully you.
Thank you, Stephen. Another thing that I struggle with, that I think I found a solution for, is collecting screenshots during the betas. So since the first beta of iOS 9 in June, I've been taking screenshots every day of every single feature or detail or problem that I notice. And I take the screenshot and I left it there in the Photos app. And around the time of beta 4, I was thinking maybe it is time for me to start organizing these screenshots, because maybe I'll have to use them, or maybe I'll have to mention a feature that's been changed during the course of the beta. And I was thinking, should I use iCloud Drive? Should I use Dropbox? Should I use one of those dedicated screenshot management apps on the iPhone and iPad? And the more I thought about this problem, the more I realized I was creating a problem for myself. So I just created an album in the Photos app, and every time I take a screenshot that it's relevant to the review, I just drop it there, so it's synced and available across all of my devices, and then I don't have to install a different app and wait for the app to sync, because Photos has been really fast in my experience. The only problem is I would like to be able to move Photos from the all Photos screen, like the main view of the Photos app, and to just move them into a folder. Basically, I want to hide those photos from the main view, those screenshots actually. So whenever I'm browsing the Photos app, I don't want to see the screenshots of iOS 9. And now instead they show up in two places. They show up in the Photos view, which is the main screen, and they also show up in the album. So like every time I browse my photos and screenshots, I see them in two places, and it's kind of confusing. And I guess the problem could be fixed by using a separate app to manage the screenshots, but I really don't want to. The final, maybe a problem initially, but now I've accepted that it's just the way that I am. Because I'm taking these more, I would say, complete maybe approach to the review this year. I never really wrote a review of iOS before. It was always like a personal reflection on iOS, and it tended to be a fairly in-depth and complete look at the new version of iOS, but it was never labeled or treated as a review. Instead, this year I'm taking the iOS review approach, and I go through all the changes that I can personally experience. So by that I mean I won't be able to test transit directions because I don't live in a city where they are available, but I'm still gonna use all the other features that I can test, even if I'm not gonna use them every day, such as, I don't know, the podcasts app or changes to reminders, that kind of stuff. But I struggled initially to accept the fact that I'm not gonna be the kind of reviewer who just describes what's new. I'm gonna have thoughts in there, and I'm gonna have comments. So I'm not going to describe in super detail what's new in multitasking. I'm not just gonna do that. I'm gonna be as objective as possible in describing all the macro changes and all the details and little known facts. But I'm also going to have an opinion on what's going on. And initially I struggled with this because I was like, I should be an objective reviewer and I should only describe what's new. And I should only focus on how the features work, what they do, what they're missing. But as I was trying to do this, I realized that I was forcing myself into a mindset that's not really mine, because I'm gonna have an opinion anyway. And even if I talk about what's missing, that's a personal motivation behind that anyway. And so the review is gonna be a combination of facts and a combination of detail, I hope, but also opinion and also experience and what it's like to use this, especially because I guess I should treat the fact that I work from an iPad as an advantage rather than a personal bias, because it is a personal bias. I mean, I use the iPad every day, so I'm gonna have an opinion. But I guess initially I didn't want to accept this. Instead, now I think I'm lucky in a way, because I get to have an opinion that's been formed over the past 2 to 3 years, and that's a good thing, I think. And I hope that it comes across, that I try to take a look at all the changes and all the features from an analytical perspective, but also from a personal perspective. And it is my hope that this kind of flow works in the review. If it doesn't, at least I tried.
So you touched on a really interesting thing, something that I think a good bit about the objectivity angle of things. And right, you go and you listen to people who have done like hardcore traditional journalism, and they say, you cannot be subjective. Journalism requires objectivity so you can tell the actual story. And I think that's true, but I think that something like an iOS 9 review is something different than objective reporting on an event or on some sort of news story. So I think that your balance of explaining the features and then giving your opinion and your thoughts on them, that, like you said, have been formed over the last several years of using this day in and day out to pay your bills. Your job is only possible because of this technology. That gives you a unique insight. And frankly, that unique insight is why people come to MacStories. It's why people are going to open the review in the first place, because hey, Federico's the iPad guy, and I want to see what he thinks about this. And so I don't know if I would if I were you, I wouldn't let that keep me up at night of where that line is of what should be objective and what shouldn't be. And because you can go crazy trying to figure out like what the right answer is, because I don't think there is a right answer. But I think too that it's something like a review, your opinion is what matters the most, right? So you can say, hey, iOS 9 does these 10 new things. It's really great. Well, then why not just go to Apple's website? Why not just go read any other website on the planet that is going to put a bulleted list of what is new in iOS 9? What you bring to the table is that unique perspective, and so I think that you should share it, and I'm looking forward to reading it. I fully anticipate reading this on my iPad.
Thank you.
And seeing what you have to say about it, because I value your opinion in this more than anyone else's, and I think there are a lot of people out there that agree with me on that.
And Federico, I saw you tweeting about this the other day. This is the first time you've done the entire review on an iPad, right?
Yes.
Like everything.
Everything.
What was the last bastion to fall?
There's nothing in this review coming from a Mac.
But what had been, like last year, for example?
Last year, for example, I did some proofreading on my Mac. I had to, most importantly, I needed to upload images from my MacBook because I didn't have a workflow for image uploads to our CDN.
I remember talking about that, how you had several different workflows and they kept breaking. And
yes, and instead this year, in fact, the workflow that I have on my iPad and the iPhone wouldn't be, maybe it would be possible, but it wouldn't be as easy or as fast or as integrated with the system as it is on OS X as it is in iOS 8 or 9. So it's actually better this year. It went from nothing to better, which is pretty good.
Anything else?
I just want to be done with this. But I'm also I'm trying to enjoy the experience. I'm trying to enjoy the fact that every time I write, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm trying to find the joy in like having a story throughout the review. There's a bunch of themes that I try to introduce at the beginning of the article, and I'm having fun developing those threads throughout the story, throughout the review, and kind of going back to those and kind of mentioning them in multiple sections, trying these few core themes and ideas, and it is fun to be able to observe how at least my mind works in connecting those themes to what's new. And maybe for some people it'll be another case of, oh my god, Federico writes too much or is too verbose, he explains too much, or he finds some kind of technological romanticism in some things that are just, a bunch of zeros and ones. And that's okay. Again, people are always free not to read. But I always go back to the question, do I want to write the website that is about, describing what's new and be done with it and just like, I'm done, I don't care, give me the page views? Or do I want to understand why people made something, whether it's a device or an app or an OS, this way because of such and such reasons? That's what I want to do. So hopefully it'll work out even at a larger scale this year. That's my hope. We'll see. Right now I just want to go on vacation and take some time off.
Well, I hope that you're able to actually relax, although I'm sure you'll be working as well.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to convince myself, but I know that I'm going to take notes, or at least take notes or write something at night. Because I'm very weird when I'm inspired and I got this sentence that I really want to write down. I'm like, okay, I just want to write down this sentence, and then I'll take a bunch of notes. And I end up writing a section. So we'll see.
Cool. I think that about wraps up this week. If you'd like to find our show notes on the internet, you can do that at relay.fm/connected/52. I want to thank our sponsors again for helping us out this week. That's Fracture, Hover, and Squarespace. And we will be back next week. If you want to find us online, you can do that. Federico is at Viticci, Viticci, and he writes at MacStories.net. Stephen is at ISMH on Twitter, and he writes over at 512pixels.net. And I am at iMyke, IMYKE. And we'll be back next time. Until then, say goodbye, guys.
Arrivederci.
Adios.